Order. I call the Honourable Minister, Jonathan Coleman.
If that was the intellectual engine room of the Labor Party, all I can tell you is that party is in deep trouble, because all that was a 10-minute personal attack on the Prime Minister. And I was really waiting there, Mr Speaker, to hear something of substance at the end. And you know, the one idea that came out of that, it was a capital gains tax. So, Mr Speaker, Labor's idea about how to get growth into this economy is to slap another tax on hard-working New Zealanders. And the problem for them is, Mr Speaker, they actually took that to the last election and it was roundly rejected. It was completely rejected. David Parker is driving their think tank approach, and that is all he can come up with. He said, well, if you don't change anything, nothing changes. Well, what they need is a change of front bench, because unless they get some people there with some ideas, some drive, some people who appeal to the average New Zealander, sir, we are not going to hear much more from them. We're going to see more and more editorials from the leader of the Greens, the real leader of the opposition, Russell Norman. But, Mr Speaker, this is a great budget. It's a great budget for the times, and it's been well received by the people of New Zealand. And to produce a budget like this in a time of international economic turmoil is a great achievement on the part of Finance Minister Bill English and the Prime Minister. And I think it shows, Mr Speaker, that the country's finances are in very sound hands, because what's been delivered here is over $4 billion of new expenditure over 4 years, which are going to pay for the vital services and infrastructure which New Zealanders need and want. And I defy the Labor opposition to tell us what they would have done. Because, Mr Speaker, what they would have done is borrow more money. That's the one bit that Phil Twyford says rubbish. They wouldn't have borrowed more money. But at the same time, they wouldn't have gone for a mixed ownership model. Well, you can't do both, Mr Speaker. You can't fund the new infrastructure that New Zealand needs if you don't either do what we're doing, which is go for that mixed ownership model, free up $5 to $7 billion of new money, or borrow money. And we know what they do. They would borrow. And where would that lead us, Mr Speaker? It would lead us down the track of Greece, of Spain, of Portugal and Ireland. And that's true. Mr Parker, he denied that the Christchurch earthquake had any effect on government's finance. He said stop using it as an excuse. Well, I can tell you, Mr Speaker, it's a miracle that the government's finances are in such good shape, considering what we've had to deal with over the past few years. And to think that there's new money, Mr Speaker, going into health, $1.5 billion over 4 years. $1.5 billion. $33 million of new funding going into cancer treatment. 500 more operations a week under this government. And you can see they've fallen silent because they have no answer to that. Today, Tony Roll, a Minister of Health, announced the new ED statistics. 93% of patients being seen within 6 hours in EDs. It was very, very bad under the Labor government. We took action, and now it is much, much better, Mr Speaker. I mean, look at the economy. 3% growth for the next 4 years. 60,000 jobs created over the last 2 years. 154,000 jobs over the next 4 years. Major achievements there. One of the key things, though, Mr Speaker, a $197 million surplus for 2014-15. A huge turnaround in the face of very difficult fiscal environment. New money for education, Mr Speaker, $512 million over 4 years. And it's interesting to see that they will not agree with the $59.8 million investment into teacher quality. They are happy for things to just continue as they have. And if you look at it, Mr Speaker, the teacher numbers have gone up 12.5% over the past few years. School rolls, 2.5%. But actually, attainment, intellectual achievement, well, the way our kids are going, it's plateaued. And they over there have no answer. They were very happy for things to just continue on as they always had. So 27,000 more elective operations, 2,000 more nurses under this government, Mr Speaker, 800 more doctors, 1,000 fewer back office positions. The health situation has been majorly turned around. 600 more police on the beat on the streets of New Zealand. 3,500 more early childhood education places. 48,000 state houses upgraded, 12,000 more tertiary education places under this government, Mr. Speaker. So you can see there is major progress, major achievement going on. 41,000 more homes warmer and drier through the Warm Up New Zealand Heat Smart program. Welfare reform, we're actually focusing on dealing with that huge iceberg of, well, look, Labor laugh about this. They yawn about it. They don't care. They were happy for things to continue as they ever did. But the fact is, we are identifying the tough issues and we are tackling them, Mr. Speaker. I just want to speak briefly about defence, Mr. Speaker. We're very proud, I think right across the House actually, of the New Zealand Defence Force and the work that our men and women do overseas. And there's a very concerted program going on to achieve savings, $350 to $400 million over the next few years, which is going to be reinvested back into the capabilities that the NZDF needs. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, it's very pleasing that that vote has been retained. But the fact is, we're going to be able to fund more and more of the capabilities that our men and women need to succeed at the front line over the coming years. Of course, Mr. Speaker, our men and women, they're coming to the end of their time in Afghanistan. The SAS have done an excellent job over the time they've been representing us there. New Zealand represented also very well overseas in East Timor, in the Ramsey deployment to the Solomon Islands. And our men and women in the NZDF deserve excellent support, and this government is determined that they get that, Mr. Speaker. And you can see that in the capabilities that we're going to be funding over the next few years, Mr. Speaker. It's quite an achievement in a tight fiscal environment to be able to maintain that vote, to achieve the savings and reinvest those savings back into the capabilities that are required. It was very interesting, though, Mr. Speaker, listening to David Shearer's reply to the Prime Minister's speech a couple of days ago. I was looking at him, and it was quite evident during that speech that he was taking no notes, which I thought was interesting. I've never seen that from a leader of the opposition before. But what was quite evident is that he had not listened to the speech at all. He had a pre-prepared message. He wasn't going to think on his feet. He wasn't going to rebut the arguments. And the fact is, this is a party, the Labor Party, which is not interested in rebutting the arguments because, frankly, Mr. Speaker, they know they've lost them. They lost them long ago. They lost them at the ballot box in 2011, and they're continuing to lose the arguments here in this chamber and in the public domain. So really, Mr. Speaker, it's quite unrefutable. This budget is the right one for the times. But not only that, we've managed to get that $4 billion of savings, $4 billion pulled together from areas where wasteful and ineffective spending was going on to actually fund the things that New Zealanders want: the health, the education, the policing, the growth in the economy, the investment in ultra-fast broadband, the investment in science, major investment in science going on, Mr. Speaker. Science, R&D, innovation. Stephen Joyce doing a great job in pulling that all together. So for them to try and make out that there's no path to the future, well, I can tell you that just does not stack up when you look at the facts. And I can tell you, if Labor had given this budget, you would have seen more buying of votes, more borrowing, but at the same time a decline in our international credit reputations, a decline in our international reputation, and they know that. They know that. And I want to hear the next Labor Speaker get up and actually tell us their plan for balancing the books, because they say they could balance the books, Mr. Speaker, but frankly, I don't believe it. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, the public of New Zealand doesn't believe it. What the public of New Zealand does believe is that John Key is the right man to be running the economy of New Zealand. He's the person with the record. His sound stewardship is getting this country going in the right direction, and that's the actual fact. We're on track for surplus 2014-2015. We've got a whole lot of new spending, $4.4 billion over 4 years. It's all working well. It's getting us going in the right direction. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the public of New Zealand are confident that we're going in the right direction. And this is a budget that has their support, and I fully support it. Kia ora.
I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.